Hollywood's golden age sold glamour, perfection, and carefully crafted illusions, but it hid some of its most fascinating stars in plain sight. Behind the studio polish were actors whose stature broke the rules, yet whose talent demanded attention. They were celebrated on screen, controlled off it, and rarely allowed to tell their own stories. What you're about to hear reveals a forgotten side of classic Hollywood few ever dared to discuss. Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney stood just 5 feet 2 inches, making him the smallest major male star of Hollywood's studio era. Yet, by the late 1930s, he had become a box office powerhouse. From 1939 to 1941, his films outgrossed those of Clark Gable, Gary Cooper, and Cary Grant combined, largely thanks to his signature role as Andy Hardy. Rooney's youthful face and compact frame allowed him to play the beloved teenager well into adulthood, and the 16-film series eventually earned nearly $1.9 billion in contemporary dollars. During the Depression, his boyish charm and relentless energy made him a symbol of hope and joy for audiences craving optimism. However, fame brought its own challenges. After serving in World War II, Rooney returned a decorated veteran. But Hollywood struggled to find roles for him. No longer fitting adolescent parts and considered too small for conventional leading man roles, he faced a height problem that appeared repeatedly on casting sheets. Romantic scenes often required creative props to bridge the physical gap with his co-stars, and his weekly salary plunged as MGM scaled back. By the 1950s, he was relegated to modest crime dramas. Rooney's fortunes revived when dramatic roles highlighted his emotional depth. His portrayals of troubled fight trainers earned consecutive Oscar nominations, proving his talent transcended physical limitations. Another renaissance came in 1979 when Francis Ford Coppola cast him as a retired jockey in The Black Stallion. Sammy Davis Jr. Standing only 5 feet 3 inches, Sammy Davis Jr. possessed a presence that dwarfed many of Hollywood and Broadway's tallest performers. Born in 1925 to a family of entertainers, he began performing almost before he could read, captivating audiences as a toddler with the Will Maston Trio. Even then, his uncanny sense of rhythm, flawless tap dancing, and magnetic stage charisma set him apart. Yet Davis's rise was fraught with obstacles. He was young, black, and short, and later survived a near-fatal car accident that cost him one eye. For many, these were limitations. For Davis, they became catalysts, driving him to perfect a performance style defined by astonishing versatility. Davis could drum with the explosive energy of Gene Krupa, croon like Frank Sinatra, and execute dance routines so rapid they seemed to defy physics. He turned his stature into a comedic tool, weaving self-deprecating humor into routines before delivering powerhouse numbers like The Birth of the Blues, which silenced entire theaters. Height concerns resurfaced in 1964 when he starred in the Broadway musical Golden Boy opposite a statuesque Swedish actress. Unfazed, he trained rigorously, refined his fight choreography, and mastered lighting techniques to command the stage. The show sold out in advance and earned him a Tony nomination. Critics marveled, calling him the smallest heavyweight Broadway has ever seen. Davis transformed Las Vegas entertainment. Venues that once barred him eventually paid $35,000 per performance and accepted contractual demands for integrated audiences and first-class accommodations. James Cagney. Though often billed as 5'9", James Cagney's military records and biographers confirm he was closer to 5'5", a height that challenged Hollywood's preference for towering leading men. Studios struggled to fit him into conventional framing. Directors often shot him from the knees up, paired him with petite actresses, or placed him on platforms to preserve the illusion of stature. Press releases perpetuated exaggerated measurements, but Cagney approached the matter with humor, once quipping that he had to reach up to deliver punchlines. Yet he turned his compact frame into a formidable asset, infusing every scene with kinetic energy and precision. His breakthrough in 1931's The Public Enemy showcased his tightly coiled movements and explosive presence, captivating audiences and establishing his trademark intensity. Off-screen, his small size did not hinder his determination. In 1936, he famously climbed a studio cart to negotiate at eye level with the towering Jack Warner, insisting on equal pay with Edward G. Robinson, and succeeding. Directors soon realized that Cagney's size amplified action sequences. In White Heat, Raoul Walsh designed the climactic oil refinery chase around Cagney's agility, letting him sprint through flames and explosions, turning physical limitation into thrilling cinematic spectacle. The film, costing over $1.3 million, recouped its budget in weeks, cementing his star power. Edward G. Robinson. Edward G. Robinson arrived in the United States from Romania at the age of 10, standing about 5'5", speaking no English, and carrying none of the conventional traits of a Hollywood leading man. With a round face and unassuming stature, he initially faced rejection from producers who deemed him too small for major roles. Undeterred, Robinson honed his voice and facial expressiveness, cultivating the sharp, clipped delivery that would become his signature. Every gesture, every inflection, was meticulously shaped to project authority far beyond his physical frame. His defining moment came in 1931 with Little Caesar. As Rico Bandello, Robinson radiated a menace so commanding that concerns about his height evaporated. Critics and audiences alike were captivated by the magnetic presence he exuded, proving that a screen actor's impact relied more on intensity than inches. Warner Brothers, uncertain whether a short actor could convincingly dominate the screen as a mob boss, resorted to claiming he was 5'9" and employed strategic camera angles to exaggerate his stature. Yet these measures were almost superfluous. The film exceeded all expectations, multiplying its budget many times over and establishing Robinson as one of Warner Bros.' most bankable stars. By the mid-1930s, Robinson's rising clout translated into salaries approaching $85,000 per picture, equivalent to nearly $2 million today, and rare privileges like script approval. Beyond cinema, he displayed courage and generosity, volunteering for perilous overseas USO missions during World War II and donating hundreds of thousands of dollars to anti-fascist causes. Charlie Chaplin. Standing around 5'5", Charlie Chaplin entered the film industry at a time when Hollywood equated leading man with height, imposing rigid expectations on posture and presence. Chaplin, however, turned these limitations into the foundation of genius. By designing the tramp's iconic costume, oversized trousers, tight jacket, bowler hat, and cane, he deliberately minimized his silhouette, emphasizing the contrast between his small frame and the grand exaggerated physical comedy that became his signature. Every gesture, stumble, and pratfall highlighted agility and timing, allowing Chaplin to dominate the silent screen despite being shorter than many contemporaries. Films like The Kid, Easy Street, and countless others showcased Chaplin's speed, precision, and inventive choreography, often drawing attention away from taller or stronger co-stars. His compact size proved practical behind the camera as well. Full-body action shots were easier to frame, reducing film usage and subtly lowering production costs. Beyond comedy, Chaplin's small stature enhanced the tramp's emotional resonance. Columbia University research in the 1920s indicated that audiences exhibited stronger physiological responses when larger antagonists threatened the character, turning apparent vulnerability into dramatic and comedic power. Chaplin's influence extended far beyond the screen. By the early 1920s, he was earning more than nearly any Hollywood star, and in 1919, he co-founded United Artists, securing unprecedented creative control over his work. His accumulated wealth by the 1950s exceeded $50 million, equivalent to hundreds of millions today. Buster Keaton. At 5'5", Buster Keaton lacked the towering presence typical of early cinema heroes, but what he lacked in height he more than compensated with extraordinary physical mastery. Born into vaudeville, he was subjected as a child to his father's brutal comedic style, tossed, thrown, and jostled across the stage, which unintentionally trained him in precise body control and safe landings. These early lessons in momentum, balance, and timing became the foundation for a career defined by astonishing physicality. Keaton learned to absorb shocks, redirect energy, and move with a mechanical precision that few performers could emulate. When he entered film in the late 1910s, his compact frame proved a distinct advantage. His lower center of gravity provided remarkable stability, allowing him to execute stunts that would have been perilous for taller actors. Physicists later noted that his build made him significantly harder to topple, a fact evident in his daring sequences. His filmography brims with near-miraculous stunts. In Sherlock Jr., a torrent of water caused a fractured neck. In Steamboat, Bill Jr., a collapsing building facade narrowly missed him. In The General, he navigated battlefield chaos with uncanny precision. Remarkably, these feats were performed without trick photography or safety doubles, highlighting both skill and courage. By the late 1920s, Keaton's mastery of physical comedy and inventive stunt work earned him his own production unit and increasing salary. Yet the advent of sound films and MGM's rigid studio oversight curtailed his creative freedom. Peter Lorre. At roughly 5'5", Peter Lorre possessed a screen presence that seemed far larger than his physical frame. His breakthrough in Fritz Lang's M, 1931, introduced audiences to a chilling intensity rarely seen on film. As the child-murdering Hans Beckert, Lorre's haunting expressions, twitching gestures, and furtive movements created a psychological grip so strong that Berlin police reportedly received mistaken sightings of him on the streets, demonstrating the terrifying realism of his performance. His height was irrelevant. It was his aura of menace, vulnerability, and unpredictability that lingered in viewers' minds long after the credits rolled. As the Nazi regime rose, Lorre emigrated from Germany, eventually catching the attention of Alfred Hitchcock. Hitchcock, who prioritized mood and psychological tension over physical stature, found in Lorre the perfect vessel for subtle menace. In The Man Who Knew Too Much, he moved almost invisibly through bustling crowds, yet the camera followed him as if danger itself had taken human form. His presence created suspense that no towering physique could achieve. Burgess Meredith. Standing just over 5'5", Burgess Meredith defied Hollywood's traditional expectations of leading men by building a career on sheer intensity rather than physical stature. Early in his stage career, directors doubted that he could command attention opposite taller actors, prompting him to develop extraordinary vocal projection and precise physicality. During a 1935 theatrical production, his mastery of projection and timing captivated audiences so completely that opening night concluded with nearly 30 curtain calls, signaling an early recognition of his commanding stage presence. Meredith's seamless transition to film soon followed, earning him a lucrative initial contract valued today at more than $500,000, a remarkable sum for a performer of his size. Unlike conventional leading men, he rarely relied on charm or romantic appeal. Instead, he carved out a niche portraying underdogs, survivors, and deeply complex characters whose presence transcended inches. His portrayal of George in the 1939 adaptation of Mice and Men exemplified this approach. Through subtle gestures, controlled expression, and taut intensity, he projected a quiet authority that critics described as towering, proving that gravitas is a matter of craft, not height. Alan Ladd. Alan Ladd, standing around 5'6", exemplifies how Hollywood could transform perceived physical limitations into defining strengths. In an era dominated by broad-shouldered matinee idols, Ladd's relatively modest stature might have seemed a commercial liability. Yet studios quickly realized that his impact on screen was measured not in inches, but in presence. Ladd's quiet intensity, clipped diction, and stoic expressions conveyed a magnetic authority, making him compelling even in the absence of the towering physique Hollywood traditionally favored. Directors and cinematographers adapted sets and camera angles to amplify his effect. Trenches were dug for co-stars, platforms added to his shoes, and lighting carefully arranged to enlarge his silhouette, creating the impression of commanding stature without compromising his natural movements. This attention to visual detail complemented Ladd's innate ability to project tension and focus, a combination that became his hallmark. His breakthrough arrived in 1942 with This Gun for Hire, where he portrayed a contract killer with minimal dialogue. Despite the character's reticence, audiences felt an electrifying intensity, instantly recognizing Ladd as a star capable of carrying a film through subtlety and precision rather than brute physicality. Lou Costello. Lou Costello, short, round-faced, and far from the sleek leading man image Hollywood often prized, redefined what it meant to command an audience. Unlike towering stars whose presence relied on physique or posture, Costello's power came from timing, expression, and physical expressiveness. His partnership with Bud Abbott created a dynamic that played directly on contrast. Abbott, tall, lean, and composed, embodied authority, while Costello, smaller and frantically reactive, became the embodiment of chaos, innocence, and comic vulnerability. Costello turned his size into a tool, using every bounce, stumble, fume, and high-pitched outburst to heighten the absurdity of everyday situations. The duo's routines, particularly the legendary Who's On First, relied on the visual and physical tension between them. Costello's stature intensified the comedy, making the misunderstandings and rapid-fire wordplay all the more striking. Beyond physical humor, he conveyed emotional immediacy, ensuring audiences felt a connection that transcended height or Hollywood glamour. Off-stage, Costello faced personal tragedies, serious illnesses, and the relentless demands of touring, yet he maintained the warmth and vulnerability that defined his performances. What do you think about the heights of these actors? Leave us your comments in the section below. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.